success. And so what I'm talking about tonight is going to be all centered around how to help you to do that with your career narrative. And so if you know someone who is, just somebody who is stuck and frustrated in their careers, then those are going to be the people who really need to hear this. So let's jump right into it. No further delay. Tag your friends, your coworkers, your family, whomever, and let's get started. If you're catching this on replay, type replay in the comments so that I know you joined on the replay, in case you don't jump on fast enough to catch me live. So what is a career narrative? So your career narrative is, prime example, if somebody asks you about your job and what do? What do you tell them? So how do you start that story off? What's the backdrop to the story that you tell? Is it an enthusiastic story? Is it one, that's uplifting and that's encouraging and that's positive? Or is it one that's on the, maybe your career is not that great and that's the story that you have to tell. Maybe you've had a really rough patch in your career. Maybe you don't have a career. And so you might tend to lean more toward the negatives. Sometimes even if you have a good career and you have a bad thing that happened, that might sway your view or your opinion. So your career narrative is the story that you tell about your career. So, and the way that it affects you, and I'm going to get more into it in a little bit, but the way that your career narrative affects you and where you are in your career and your career progression is that when you talk about your career and if if your perception of it, your interpretation of it is negative, then it really skews the things that you're willing to do, to pursue, what you won't do. So it really influences your decisions when it comes to your career. If you have an interpretation that you're being held back at your job and the people don't like you, that is, and especially if it's a smaller company and there's not a lot of places that you can go, that's going to make you want to leave. And you're going to have the impression that that job or that company is not a good job or a good company to work with, or the people are corrupt or they're rotten or they're not good people to work with, or whatever it is that you use to describe them. So that, and so that it's kind of like tinting your view, so to speak, or tinting your lenses that you view things through. Your career narrative does that. So if your story is more positive, you might have more rosy colored glasses. If your story is, negative and you've had bad experiences, then you might have a gray or a blackish colored lens to your glasses that you're looking through. But, and for you, it's probably really something that you feel very strongly about. Now, this might be the part that's a little bit challenging for you. What I am going to challenge you to do is to think a little bit outside the box when it comes to the narrative that you tell yourself, because the one that you tell yourself either helps to propel you forward or it keeps you stuck. And the purpose of following me and watching things that I do and engaging with me is to keep you moving forward, helping women to surge to their next level of success. That is what I'm all about. So it's all about progression, and things might have happened and you have a certain perception about it, but that is not the truth with the capital T for how things have to be for you moving forward. And sometimes it just requires us to take a more objective look at the situation to see if that is really, prime example. You can have two people who witness a situation and they both have different viewpoints about what happened. the same can be true, or the same kind of, thinking can be true when it comes to you and situations that happen with you in your career. You can have a certain view about it, but it might just be the story that you've told yourself. It might not necessarily be the way things were. It's just the way that you interpreted them through the lenses that you view the world through. So you have to be willing to kind of step outside the box and look at the thing from the 20-foot view and say, if I take a step back, or if I put somebody else in this situation, would I have the same opinion about that series of events that took place? Would I still think the same way about it? Maybe you would, probably you wouldn't. So that's what I'm talking about when I talk about career narratives. So these are very powerful things. And so if you've had interaction with me for any period of time, I talk about these things called GALEs. And this is just an acronym, but the I stands for interpretations. And interpretations are just stereotypes and generalizations about how the world operates or how things are. And we believe them, we buy into them. And so, like, if somebody said something about everybody was going to lose their house or something, and you saw some neighbors in your neighborhood and 2 or 3 people had their houses foreclosed on, then that might affect the way that you're thinking about what's going on in the economy. When it might not necessarily be the economy that's causing the situation. It could be this person's spouse died and, now they have to downsize. It could be a whole variety of things. So I just want to give you some context for what I'm talking about when I'm talking about these narratives, and which are just interpretations, which are just stories and stereotypes about how things operate, and we buy into them. And if we buy into them and apply them to ourselves, they become more than just a stereotype. They become what we call limiting beliefs, because they're limiting you from doing the things that you want to do and that you need to do to help to move yourself forward. So now that we have that distinction out of the way, let's talk about how you can use your career narrative to help you to get to where it is that you want to be in your career. So when you and I encourage you to take some time out maybe this weekend and figure out, what is your career narrative? What is the story that you always tell about your career and what has happened in it, and why you are where you are in it, or why you're not where you want to be in it. And just be real with yourself. You don't have to share it with anybody else. Just for yourself. What is that story that you tell? And once you know what that story is, and if you have the ability to look at it in an objective way, to say, okay, this is the story, and that's what it is. It's a story, and I get a chance to either stick to this story, or I can create a new story about what I want in my career. I'm just going to take a short minute to tell you this story today. This happened today at work. I was leading my team's meeting, and we were talking about something that really needs to happen. And the question came up, what if it doesn't happen? And then they started speculating about, if it doesn't happen, X, Y, Z, ABC. And so I had to refocus the conversation and said, you know what? And I said, you know what? Let's not even focus on what's going to happen if it doesn't. Let's put our focus and our effort and our attention on getting what we want. Let's focus on what we want and not on what we don't want. And so the same thing happens with you and your career narrative. You want to refocus that narrative. You want to reshift your career narrative so that your career narrative is guiding you and directing you to what you want to have in your career. So instead of talking about all the bad things that have happened, maybe they did happen the way that you think that they happen, or the situations happened. I'm sure they happened. But the meaning that you assign to them, that's the part that we want to really investigate and to talk about. So along that same line, this is how you can make that work for you. When you sit back and figure out what the story is and determine how you can reinterpret the meaning and use that to get to where you want to go, it can be a really powerful tool for you in your quest to advance in your career, in your quest to make more money, to have career opportunities that maybe you don't have right now, to create promotions, to have more career satisfaction, to do work that you enjoy, to work at your dream company, all of those good things. And the way that you use it, so you've heard of businesses having brand stories, and every business has a brand story. Every business has a brand story. And they might tell it in different ways, but it's a story about how they got to be where they are, how they, fulfill their mission, what is important to them, all of that good stuff. That's the brand story for a company. For people, you are a company. You are a brand. You are selling your services to an employer in exchange for a paycheck and benefits and, whatever else that you get from your job. So you need to start to view yourself as not just an employee, but as you are a business. You are a business of YOU. I like to say you are the CEO of YOU Incorporated. That's the way I like to think of it, because that puts you in control of your career, which you really are in control of your career. You just have to recognize that. So back to this brand story. So businesses have brand stories. You're a business, you need a story. You need a brand story. This is going to be your career story, your career narrative, where you talk about all the things that have happened and you put a positive spin on it, because you can actually use this. You can use it when you're writing cover letters, to write a really compelling cover letter. You want to write cover letters that help people to be able to relate to you. That's the value in them. It helps them to relate to you by your ability to relate to them. So that's the cover letter piece. So if you're writing a cover letter and you're submitting the application online, we all know that the chances of success with that is very slim. But if you have a cover letter coupled with the resume, then it gives you an opportunity to talk about things that are not necessarily covered in that resume. And when you can get to talking about your story of how you, found them, how you connect with them, what you have in common, why you want their job, XYZ, ABC, all of those kinds of things, then that helps to create the connection. The brand story is helpful to help you to figure out what you want to write in that cover letter. Also, when you're interviewing, your story, your career narrative, which we're calling it not right now, your brand story, because you're the business of YOU Incorporated, right? So your brand story is what you tell in your interviews. So when they say, tell me about yourself, you just tell your reinvented career story that is actually something positive now versus negative. It might have been negative, more than likely it was negative. But you use that as an asset to help you to be able to relate and create connections, because that's how you get hired. They want to know about your skills and that you can do the job and all of that stuff. But when you create connections with people, that's how, you really are able to stand out above and beyond some of the other people that come and sit right in the chair that you sit in right after you. The other thing that you can do is, in addition to your cover letters, in addition to using it in your interviews, is networking. It is super powerful when networking. So what you can do, of course, when you're out and you're networking, people want to know what you do. They're going to ask you questions because they're trying to get to know about you. And then, of course, the same thing, you want to know about them, so you can see if there's some synergies there, some things that you have in common that you can use to build a relationship from. And so that career narrative helps you to be able to do that, to create that connection. When you're able to tell a story in such a way that even if there's been some hiccups and some snafus along the way, that you can put a spin on them that doesn't turn people off, because people don't like to hear a whole bunch of negative stories. You can have something negative in it, but if you can figure out, if you are able to articulate, that you had the experience, that you were able to take a step back and look at the situation to get some lessons learned from it and then apply them, that's what helps people to really be attracted to you and your story. So those are some elements you want to create in your career story. And you want to use it when you're networking. You want to use it if you're doing informational interviews with different people to find out things about them, when you're just meeting people randomly, even if you're just talking to the soccer moms on your kids' soccer team, and you can use that as networking, because they have jobs, they have networks of people that they know. So you utilize all the things that you have available to you. And so networking is another way that you can use that career narrative in a positive way to help you to get to where you want to go. And it's all about establishing those connections, as I've been talking about. So those are the 3 things that I want to share with you about how you can use your career narrative. But of course, we had to talk about what that career narrative was so we can get that great understanding. If you missed it and you're just tuning in, then go back to the beginning after this broadcast ends and check out this information, because it's something we don't talk about a lot, but it's something that really can help you to get to where you want to be in your career. Now, before I leave, if you're on Instagram, I did it today. I actually posted my link to my free gift that I have for you. I have a free gift. It's called Everything You Need to Know to Switch Careers, because I know that this is a major concern for people in my audience wanting to know what they need to do to switch careers. So I put together a free resource, and it's yours by just clicking the link that I have shared. And I am about to share it on Facebook and Periscope and all of those beautiful places. So just click the link, get your information downloaded to you, and follow the steps. Follow the guidance, and, work the process and see what happens. That's all I have. Hello, Valerie. No other like me. I like that. No other like me. McBride. Hello, Alvin Andrews. I'm fine. How are you today? And that's all I have for you guys tonight. Like and share the video. And I will see you tomorrow. Have a good night. Bye-bye.